Sure, I told him, but you got to remember, too, that all those kinds of love are connected, and they're connected right here. And I reached between my legs and grabbed my dick and shook it there. Otherwise, that wouldn't be love. You know, telling you about all this show got me remembering something else, too. I ain't thought about it in a long time, but it couldn't have been too much later, or maybe earlier, I guess. It was when you were just starting on solid food, and we had fixed the upstairs for the first time. But one day, when you was lying on the couch and crying, and your mama didn't know what was wrong, and you're hunching up, and you could tell from the way you was crying that it really hurt you, and we thought it was colic there, back after 3 weeks of you not having any. But I'm looking you over, and I take your pamper off to see if you're wet. And I turn you over. You was kind of a colicky baby, and there, between your butt cheeks, was a little piece of shit poking about 1/4 of an inch out your asshole. So I feel around it with my finger, and I realize it's a goddamn hard turd in there, and you're working and working to push it out. But you ain't strong enough, 'cause you're just a little baby, and you're screaming and screaming 'cause it hurts you so bad. I picked you up and prodded till I got it out about another 1/4 of an inch, and then it wouldn't come no more. And you're still screaming. So I didn't even think about it. I spread your cheeks, hunkered down, stuck my mouth on your ass, and sucked as hard as I could, and it come right on out. And I stood up and spit it in my hand. It was about as long as my finger and about as thick. You wouldn't have thought a goddamn kid could hold a piece of shit like that. And your mama, she looked at me, and about 6 seconds later, you stopped crying. We got some Vaseline and rubbed it in your asshole so it wouldn't sting, but by that time, you was asleep. And another time, I guess it was about 10 or 15 months later, you was walking around by then, but you wasn't talking. You had this cold, though. Your eyes were all running, and it looked like you had snot dripping out of every hole in your head. You didn't have it running out your ears, but you might as well have had. Anyway, you were up on the old red couch we used to have before we got the fold out, and I guess you was so tired you fell asleep. And you was just snoring and bubbling away, snuffling like a sore fall through wet wood. I don't remember what I was doing, fixing something for your mama, I guess, when you stopped. Just like that. Breathing. For 5 seconds, I didn't think nothing. Then I looked at you, got down off the ladder, and come on over, and I said, "Hey, Sho." You was on your back, your face covered in snot, your little chest jerking up and down, like you were trying to breathe, or maybe hiccuping, like you're having some kind of bad dream. So I bent down and shook you by the shoulder and said, "Sho." And you didn't wake up, but just kept jerking, and I could hear no air was getting in and out, and you wasn't breathing. Well, right behind me, your mama said, real worried, "What's the matter with him?" Well, I tell you, I was down on my knees. I had my mouth over your nose, and I gave the biggest suck I could, and this stuff comes right out your nose, right into my mouth. And I turned around and spat it out on the coffee table there. It was almost the size of a goddamn whale's egg, like a piece of soft silly putty, all laced with blood. I was back to suck out the rest of it when you gasped in a big breath and woke up coughing and crying, and you reached up to hold me, and I held you, and I rubbed your back. But you was breathing again, and this little trickle of blood, just a thread, was running out your nose. Well, we took you to the doctor. You done had a nosebleed, not a bad one either, he said, but all the snot in there kept thickening up, and it almost choked you to death. When we was driving home in the pickup, your mama said, and she didn't say it mean or nothing. It was just as sincere as anything she ever said. She said, "Buck, you'd do anything for that little boy, wouldn't you? I seen you suck the shit out of his ass and the snot out of his nose. You must love him more than anything in the world." How many men would do that for any child? Now, once, when I was a kid, Crazy Calvin, he told me he'd seen one of his cousins do that same thing to a little baby girl, what was choking. But I swear I didn't remember that till after we was in the car with you coming home from the hospital. I remembered how Calvin had gone on about how disgusting it was and he wouldn't let the baby die? Well, that's crazy. Maybe that's why Calvin was crazy. But I'll tell you something else. Though Calvin told me about that back when we were kids, when I remembered it there in the car, the first thing I thought was, well, what's the big deal? You know, a dog or a cat can't do what I did for you, for its puppies or its kittens. See, a dog or cat can't make no airtight seal to suck something like that out. That's probably why there are more people around than dogs and cats. But anyway, I'm driving home in the pickup with your mama beside me and you sleeping on her lap and breathing now. And I'll tell you, Shote, what she said about how much I love you, it sounded so strange to me. It was like she was speaking another language where I didn't understand what the words meant. I even thought for a couple of seconds there that love was another of them words like alcohol, that I'd grown up with some ass-backwards meaning to it, so that I realized I didn't know what she was talking about and had been misunderstanding every movie and TV show and story and joke every time I heard the word before. I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. But I thought and thought on it. I remember it was a Friday afternoon when we brought you back from the emergency room at Highgate Central. And for the rest of the weekend, I don't think I got more than an hour's sleep at a time, listening to you breathe, making sure you didn't up and decide to stop. But beat as I was, by Monday morning, your cold was better, so I went into work. But I was thinking, too, about what your mama had said about love. You see, Shote, it just didn't seem like what I had done had anything to do with love. I mean, that's just what you do when a baby stops breathing. If I'd been in some supermarket and some strange nigger woman I hadn't ever seen before suddenly shouted out, "Hey, my baby ain't breathing," and she couldn't get it together enough to do it herself, I'd do the same damn thing for her baby I'd done for you. I mean, the first time when I sucked that hard piece of shit out your asshole back before, I didn't say to myself, "Oh, this here is my baby, and because I love it, I'll get the shit out its asshole any way I can to stop it from screaming in pain." But if it were somebody else's baby now, I'd say, "Fuck it, go on and hurt." Or when you was choking to death, I didn't say, "Well, since I love this baby, I guess I'll suck the blood clot out its nose and save its life. If, of course, it belonged to someone else and I didn't love it, I'd just let it lie there and die, or just hang around and listen to it scream." So, to say that's crazy. Now, I realize your mama didn't mean nothing but good by what she said, but it's still crazy, Shote. What I did seemed to me as normal as getting a hard-on when I used to pick you up, as normal as feeling good the 2 or 3 times I let you suck on my tit to see what it felt like. It didn't have nothing to do with love. It was like the ordinary, normal thing on which maybe you got to build some love. For me, I swear, Shote, it was the most ordinary thing in the world. But for your mama, see, it was so unusual, it meant I must love you. I thought about both those things again there, that day, when you were on the couch, and this is a reference to another incident in the book, which I will skip over, but I ain't joking. It's what just happens sometimes. What I told Hump Magarich is true, the God's honest truth. I loved me, Irene, and you. But what I did when you was a little baby, hurting or choking, that wasn't no part of it. That was just normal, like hugging someone and getting a hard on. What your mama said to me, that got me thinking about old Hump, too. I guess, like I said, because those things weren't so far apart. Hump didn't hate his baby. He was just scared to death of his own body. And I guess his wife's, too. But because he was scared of his body and expecting everything to be normal, like it is on TV and not like it is in real life, he didn't even have the base. If you don't have the base, how are you going to go on to love anything? Or, if you don't, it's going to be a pretty messed up kind of love. Have fun till the good stuff comes pouring out. But I bet he was one of those guys that never tasted no cum, his or nobody else's, so he didn't know how good it was. Little kid picks his nose and eats his snot because it's good. Little kid puts his finger in a shit and tastes it to see what it tastes